evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this online information session about studying studio art and design at PLU. I'm Heather Matthews. I'm the chair of the Department of Communication, Media, and Design Arts at PLU, and I'm going to take you through a slideshow tonight and talk about the programs that we have, and then we'll have time for questions and any kind of conversation, anything that you want to talk about regarding the programs or other questions you might have at the end of things. Okay, so in order to just kind of illustrate everything really clearly, I've made a slideshow that I think will cover some important facts and numbers, and also includes a couple of nice images. Since we're not on campus and you can't see into our studio spaces, I thought it'd be a nice opportunity for us to give you a sense of what it's like to be in the department. Okay, so just get everything out of the way here. All right. Oops. All right, so just to give you a general sense of what it's like to study studio arts at PLU, I should say before I continue that studio art is part of the larger programs of the Department of Communication, Media, and Design Arts. We are a fairly large department that brings together studio art and design on one side and communication disciplines on the other side. So in addition to our visual arts offerings and art history, we also have within our department strategic communication studies and film and media concentration within the communication major. So there's a whole other side to things. Tonight, we're just focusing on the art side of things. So as you can see on the slide here, we've got several different degrees that we offer. In the studio art side of things, we offer a Bachelor of Art in Studio Arts, which ranges right around 44 hours. And that's kind of I would say about an average size of degree at PLU. Our studio art majors often, with the BA, they often have space in their schedules to take on a second major. So we have lots of double majors who are BA students in studio art. We also offer a Bachelor of Fine Arts in design specifically, and that's a higher credit load. So that ranges from 70 to 76 hours, which means that as a BFA student in design, you're really focusing on your work as a designer. It requires more time in studio classes, specifically in the design concentration. And it's just a kind of a more intensive type of training. It's really intended for people who are really interested in design, maybe come in even thinking already that they're interested in becoming designers, or who find their way to that as they're doing their introductory studio level classes. We also offer a Bachelor of Arts in Art History, and that's what I'm responsible for. I'm an art historian, and the art history degree ranges around 40 hours. So it's also as a kind of leaves room for additional majors or minors, and very often my majors take additional, combine their art history degree with something else on campus. In addition to these various majors, we offer a couple of minors in the department, one in studio art, which makes sense, but also in art history. And then we have a very specialized minor in publishing and printing arts, which we offer together with the English department and is aimed at students who are interested in going into publishing, whether that's from the kind of nuts and bolts of writing and editing, or from our side, the creation of illustration, the production of handmade books, and that sort of thing. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. Within those different degrees, everybody sort of starts out at the same place. So while you have a very, as a designer, you're taking a very specific design-oriented course of study, but both design BFA students and Bachelor of Arts students start out with fundamental courses and then move on to study in very particular media areas. So I thought I would show you a list of the areas that we offer. So we offer book arts, as I mentioned, in conjunction with the publishing and printing major. Book arts is kind of a combination of printmaking and 3D design work because you are printing pages with our antique collection of antique type and our antique printing presses, but you're also then building books. So stitching them together, creating traditional and some not very traditional forms of book shapes. It's a really exciting class. So we offer book arts, both an intro and an advanced class. We offer an introductory and advanced classes in ceramics. And I've got one picture on the left there of a student working on a wheel thrown vessel. And so in our ceramics classes, you're doing both slab work, so hand-built things, and also wheel thrown work. And the ceramics classes also are alternately focused on functional ceramics, so making cups and plates and vases and things like that, and sculptural ceramics, which would be more like artistic, expressive forms, animals, people, shapes. So we try to alternate those every few years so that students have an opportunity to kind of really try out the ceramics areas. I've mentioned design already. Design includes graphic design, really working especially for print. So if you're interested in designing posters or book design or things like greeting cards and stationery and anything you can imagine, magazine layout, anything that's two-dimensional, our designers tackle that, but we're also working in a lot of digital media, as you can imagine. So one way or the other, you're gaining proficiency in all of the Adobe software, as well as prototyping software like Figma, and learning how to conceive things in 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions, virtually or in the real world. We offer painting classes. This semester, our painting classes are probably going to be in acrylic primarily, but they are often oil painting classes. We've occasionally had also watercolor. So we try to change up that offering as often as we can. We have a really beautiful painting studio, which you can see here in that picture on the side of the screen, but it's a very small picture, really kind of cut out most of the studio space, but you'll have to take my word for it. It's a very big, light-filled studio, and it's a really lovely place to work. We offer a really varied photography set of courses, including both darkroom-based and digital photography, so that our students are getting training in creating and managing digital images, but are also experiencing more historical forms of photography. And I wanted to call that out, especially because our fall semester class, our darkroom photography class last fall was specifically a class in historical methods of photography. So they weren't actually using cameras, they were doing a lot of cameraless photography. So working with sensitized paper and other surfaces without the medium of a camera is really quite fascinating. We offer printmaking every year, and our print studio is really extensive. We've got several very large and complicated presses that accommodate all sorts of different specific print media. We start out with linoleum cut, but that can advance up into all sorts of other kinds of intaglio as well. And the printmaking studio is adjacent to our book art studio, and those 2 disciplines work very closely together because they both are making print work and using the presses, and kind of they sort of feed into one another. And then lastly, I've listed 3D modeling, which is part of our general 3D side of things and is also an important component of our more kind of technologically intensive coursework. The 3D modeling class is run using a program called Rhino, which is a pretty standard kind of industry standard software for 3D design. Students also are able to print out their designs using our printer. And it's, I think, very frequently our designers who take that course as a chance to kind of get a technology class that is somewhere outside of the bounds of a typical graphic design course. This page is meant to kind of take all of those studio areas and break them down into where they fit inside of these 2 studio tracks that we run, right? The Bachelor of Arts and the Bachelor of Fine Arts. So everybody takes foundation courses. That includes drawing and 2D design, as well as 3D design. And those courses, ideally, students are taking those right away as they come in, because we want to sort of establish a certain level of common, vocabulary and just kind of an awareness of different media and principles right from the beginning. And then from there, students move on to the specific areas of the studio disciplines. And again, that is for the folks who are following the Bachelor of Arts track. They're really taking kind of a sampling of all of the courses in the department. For the BFA students, they're doing that as well. And then they're also focusing very closely on 4 distinct graphic design courses on top of these general studio courses. So in the 2D side of things, that's printmaking and painting, that's figure drawing. Graphic design counts as a 2D course as well if you're not specializing in design. And then everyone takes 3D courses, which include ceramics, 3D digital modeling, and then book arts also fits into both the 2D and the 3D side of things because you're doing both in that discipline. Everyone has to take photography because we feel that photography is not only important as an artistic medium, but it is really crucial for any artist who's practicing as a professional so that they're able to document their work and really publicize their work. You need to know how digital cameras work. You need to know how to capture your artwork the most, as accurately as you can. You need to understand the lighting. You need to understand all of the different types of files and how to manipulate images after they're taken. And all of these things are really significant. So we have everybody taking photography. I'd say also as an art historian, I think it's really important to take photography because we see photographic images everywhere on a daily basis, kind of bombarded by them. And it's really important for us to understand how a photograph is made and what it can mean. So photography is really crucial to all of our programs. And then everybody takes art history, intro level art history 1 and 2, which is, starting with the cave paintings and going all the way up through the 20th century or today. And then everybody takes 1 advanced art history class. And those topics vary from year to year. This spring, I'm teaching my art and gender course. I teach a class on art and memorials. We've had special topics courses about the politics of art and what we're expected to see when we look at art. So that can, ideally, it's varied enough that there's always something interesting to students. And then finally, everybody in the department and everybody across campus complete some kind of a culminating project when they're here. So we refer to that as capstone. And in the art department, in the studio art area, capstone comes in 2 pieces. So the art historians will just write papers or produce exhibits. It's more of a kind of traditional capstone. But for the studio artists, they're taking a class in their junior year, which we call Keystone, and they're setting up their project for their senior year, which is their capstone. So in the Keystone class, they're doing some reviewing of the work that they've done in the past. They're doing research on artists they're interested in, and they're kind of shaping their projects. And then as seniors in the spring semester, they take capstone, and with their colleagues, they're kind of finishing up their own projects while working with their classmates to create their senior exhibition, which is a really big deal, probably our biggest event every year. And that's just starting to get going next week. So it's all very exciting. We get to see what the students have been working on, and they have the opportunity to present that in our university gallery, however they like. So it's really exciting. I thought I would say a few words about what we do outside of the studios, because there's obviously other stuff going on, not just classes. So I just thought of a few things and included some illustrations here, and I have a few more slides with bigger images to follow on this. But the things that I thought of right away are Study Away, our various student organizations, collaborations in the community, and then how we use the university gallery, as I've just mentioned. So I'll start with Study Away. And I just have a few pictures here from the Marschutz program. The Marschutz School is a very kind of traditional art academy in Aix-en-Provence in France. And we are participants in their semester-long Study Away program. So if you are a studio artist and you want to study away in a program that is specifically geared towards refinement of studio technique. They offer drawing and painting primarily, also photography, and then some history and theory courses as well. It's a really fantastic opportunity, and we've got 2 students there right now, and it's been pretty steady interest in that program since we joined it maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But I pull this up because it's a real showpiece for studio artists, but in general, I would say Study Away at PLU is really important. Everybody on the faculty side of things is very supportive of your opportunities to study away. And I'd say that even if you come in as a studio artist and you don't necessarily want to go to art school for that semester, maybe you want to do something else, focus on something in your minor or something, that's understandable. We just need to plan ahead of time to make sure that you're completing requirements with the goal of being away from campus for a semester. So as long as we can figure out how you're going to get all of your credits taken care of before, during, or after your study away experience, I think it's really crucial as an opportunity to take advantage of that. So happy to talk more about study away. Community involvement with PLU art, with artists. This is the first thing that came to mind, and this is from several years ago. But this is an annual event in downtown Tacoma at King's Books. It's called Waysgoose, and Waysgoose is just a kind of an international printmaking festival. It happens in lots of different places around the world every spring. And this is from a few years back when a couple of our PLU students created gigantic linoleum prints, and that was specifically for the steamroller print making. So you can see the steamroller in the image there on the left side of the screen. One of our faculty members and one of our students there getting ready for the steamroller to roll over the plate and then pull the print. And on the right, you can see some students pulling up a finished print from their linoleum. So it's a fantastic experience, but students participate in Waysgoose as assistants. Some of them even show there with their own work, and it's just a really great kind of once a year opportunity for people to get together around printmaking. The last thing I had on my list was the University Gallery, and I'd mentioned that in conjunction with the students' senior exhibition. So I've got 2 pictures here from our senior show last spring. I realized this gives you a good sense of the painting, which we had some really wonderful examples of on the 2 outside walls, but unfortunately there's so many people in the gallery, you can't see the work that's installed in the middle of the gallery. So was some really fantastic photography in last year's show, a lot of really strong design work. And then here on the right, you can see one of our students did costume making as her senior project and made some really fantastic kind of not quite historical, not quite contemporary costumes just for characters that she'd invented. So it's really fantastic. But the gallery, in addition to hosting the senior show, is open to students in the fall for the student juried exhibition. So if you are an active artist and you want to show your work on campus, we have an annual opportunity for you to do that in the University Gallery. We also host local and regional artists once or twice a year as well, so that you have an opportunity to see somebody else's work, to speak with the artist and really get that sense of, what it is to be a professional out in the art world. So what happens after graduation? I've just made a list here, and I'm not going to read through them because that feels really kind of pedantic to do, but this is just a list of, I tried to kind of go back about 5 years maybe, and think about the types of jobs that people have gotten that demonstrate sort of the breadth of things that our graduates are going into. So you can see on here, there are several folks who are working as designers professionally, and those were in fact BFA design students while they were at PLU, but several of them also were book designers or ceramic specialists. They're going off in different areas and becoming professionals in a lot of quite varied fields. And then at the bottom of that list, I've included some of our more recent grad school attendees, just where they've gone and the kinds of programs that that they're participating in, because it's pretty varied. It's not, everybody doesn't just go off to get an MFA, although a few people have. they're also pursuing other disciplines that are sort of seem kind of like adjacent and supported by their studio work. And the last on that list there is the Master of Arts in Education at PLU, which is a program I kind of wanted to call out specifically because many of our studio students want to teach art. And there's a very kind of established track to do that after they've completed their BA or their BFA at PLU in our department. They apply then to the master's program, which is run by the School of Education or the Department of Education. It's an accelerated program, so they're done fairly quickly within a year and a half, I think, go straight into their student teaching and are out in the world as an art teacher fairly quickly. It's a really great program. I think that's all I have in terms of prepared comments. So we could move to questions or discussion. So let's see, the first question in Q&A is about software like ZBrush and Maya. At the moment, we're focused on Rhino because that's what we've been using most years, I'd say, going back probably 7 or 8 years that I can remember, although we have also used both ZBrush and Maya, just not in the last 3 or 4 years that I can think of. Our faculty member who teaches the course is always experimenting with other technology though, so it's not something that we're necessarily stuck in. It's something we're always trying to consider how we might expand that. So I certainly think that's something that could be expanded. The second question says here, do you have options for students interested in studying film? So yes, we have both from the, I'm assuming when you say studying film, you're thinking about the production of film, but if you're thinking about the reception of film, they come from 2 different places. So we do offer lots of classes in theory and kind of reception of film, and those come from generally the English department and from our languages classes. But if you're interested in the production of film, that comes from our colleagues on the communication side of our department. We have a concentration in film and media studies, and part of that is the production of long form, well, both short and long form video. So they're best known in that, on that side of things, for making documentaries in recent years. And the student documentaries that PLU has produced have been really well received. They've won several student Emmys for the work that they've done. So it's a really well-established program within our larger department. What other locations are provided for studying abroad? Wow, so many. If you are interested in study away, I'd say check out the PLU, I think it's plu.edu/studyaway, pretty sure, or you can just search for that in a search engine. We have several programs that PLU is responsible for, that our own, we call them gateway programs. I'm trying to think what is back up and running now after kind of post-COVID, but Namibia, in Oxford, in Trinidad and Tobago. Those are the 3 that come to mind immediately as semester-long courses. And then in January, we offer short-term study away for 3 to 4 weeks in all kinds of places. I don't even know, I couldn't even begin to say all of the PLU things that are offered in J-term, but Central Europe, Germany specifically this year, several courses to the United Kingdom, 1 in Ireland. There's a January term to Trinidad and Tobago as well. Uruguay right now in J-term. Oaxaca, we have a program both in J-term and in the semester for Oaxaca. If you're interested in that, it's a really fantastic program that includes some art coursework as well. So really study away. Those are just the PLU things as well. So if you're interested in going somewhere that we don't specialize in our own programs, we are members of a larger consortium, and there's all kinds of other opportunities. If you wanted to go to France, if you wanted to go to Eastern Europe somewhere, if you wanted something closer to home and wanted to do study away within the United States, there are all kinds of programs that you have available to you. What year would one do study away? So What I observe most of the time is students either in their second semester sophomore year or first semester junior year. That seems to be sort of where it works out. What I always say to my students is, once you get to campus and you have a sense of, this helps, it helps if you know what your degree is going to be in already. You know what your major is, you can plot your course from the beginning. And then it's really easy to see, first of all, how much of your general university requirements and how much of your degree requirements in your major you can get taken care of, how quickly. And then you can also plan ahead to understand, if you go on X program to Y country, what classes can you take while you're there that would feed into either your major or your general university requirements. So maybe you go abroad to the Czech Republic and you take a history course that can count for one of your history requirements. It's just about planning. So if you're really organized really early, I certainly wasn't as a student, you can get that figured out pretty quickly. But I would say not sooner than sophomore year, and ideally not until like that second semester. Let's see. I want to be a storyboard artist, character designer, animator for Disney, Pixar, Cartoon Network. Are there any opportunities for animation? Well, we don't offer a regular course in animation, in digital animation, but we incorporate that into a number of our classes. And we've had several, particularly our design students, who have pursued animation as part of their senior projects. So it's been a big part of, I'd say in the last 4 years, probably we've had at least one person each year who's pursuing design. So this year we have a student who's working on 3D animations. Sorry, I misspoke earlier, but I meant animation. So while it's not part of the curriculum as a separate, like, independent component, it is worked into our design program at different points. And our goal is to create more of an emphasis on that. We, at the moment, the way that we're approaching it is to emphasize the importance of drawing as a skill, of figure drawing in particular, because you need that understanding of the human body and its mechanics, and then the various technology-based, so digital technology-based courses that we offer kind of feed into that. Would it be possible to mix classes from other art disciplines? For example, if I was doing a BFA in graphic design, would I also be able to try paint? Yes, absolutely. And the way that the two programs are organized, everybody is pretty much in class with everyone else. Everyone's required to take that same basic foundation level of coursework. So drawing, 2D design, and 3D design. And then you're also required to have those 2D and 3D courses, so either painting or printmaking, and maybe ceramics 1 or 2, or maybe 3D design, whether you're a BA or a BFA student. So you're going to be mixing in with everybody as everybody moves through their coursework. So, and you'll also find that there are BA students who will take 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 of the graphic design courses. So we don't have any kind of restrictions in terms of like who can take which class. How would you choose between the BA and the BFA programs if you wanted to go into graphic design, but also are planning to double major in something else? Yes, great question. That is very common, I will say, because the BFA is pretty intensive. It's a little bit, this gets a little bit technical, and I'll just give you, try and keep it as general as I can. Basically, you're free, if you have space, to take the courses that you want to take in your schedule. So while the BFA requires all 4 of those graphic design courses, and it also requires an additional technology class, and the BA doesn't, you are, as a BA student, required to take a little bit more from the general university requirements. So there's sort of a, it doesn't amount to as much as the BFA requires in terms of credit load, but it is a little bit more. But you still have room to take maybe 2 additional classes. So right now I have a couple of people who are BA students, and they're really interested in graphic design. They're also super interested in painting. So they're kind of trying to do both things. And that means they're taking additional classes in graphic design alongside the other stuff that they're doing. So it's certainly possible. Again, like so much of this, it's helpful to have a sense starting out where you want to go, so that you can kind of plot these things out from the beginning. But you might also discover this midway through your program, and then we just have to kind of adjust and strategize whenever you come to these realizations, we can figure it out. And that's a lot of my job. I'm also the advisor in the department, so I have these conversations with people very frequently. Let's see, are there animation courses or courses focused on storyboarding in the film concentration? That's a good question. Not in the coursework, in so much as there are not classroom classes that do that, but that is part of student media, which is a kind of co-curricular organization. So you get academic credit for student media work, but they're not traditional courses. It's more like a studio-based experience. And in that, if you are working in Media Lab, which is our organization that produces these longer, these documentary videos, in that process, you're definitely doing some of this storyboarding, at least for sure. The animation courses, I think I've already touched on that we don't have anything that's specifically about animation, but storyboarding as a storytelling tool certainly happens within the realm of student media. And also we've used that in our classes on the studio side of things, in our art classes, particularly for my current major isn't doing that at the moment, but a previous student who created a short video, a short animated film is not quite the right word, but a little animated story, made use of storyboarding in order to get that done. So it's something that's kind of part of the graphic design program or the design program if you're going in that direction. If filmic storytelling is something that you want to do, then the faculty will work with you to do that storyboarding, but it's not like a central component of any of our classes. If I also wanted to study music, would it be more beneficial to major in both art and music or to major in art and minor in music? That's a really tough question. I think, and if you ask the music department, they'll probably give you a different answer than I would. I think it kind of depends on where your true heart lies, right? Like what's the thing that really means the most to you? Because a music major is very demanding. And it is difficult, but not impossible to be a major in music and also have a minor. I have several students this year who are doing that, but it's just something you have to be really careful and make sure that you plan time for everything that needs to be finished, needs to be completed so that you finish on time. But it's possible. The other way around, to be a studio major, an art major, and have a music minor might be a little bit easier to manage. I also have double majors in studio art and music, so it's not impossible. It's a demanding course of study, but if you are really devoted to both things, it can happen for sure. What is the size of the student population in the art department? How many approximately are majoring and plan to get a BA or BFA in arts? We, as a general rule, have about, I will say, between 55 and 60 majors at any time. Trying to think what my last count was. That's about, I'm sure that that's correct. I'd say 58 maybe is kind of a typical ballpark figure. It's kind of hard to tell. It sort of depends on how many people have graduated each year, and I have to adjust my numbers, but I'd say call it around 60 every year. And that is, you have to imagine their presence in the department kind of increasing in concentration the longer they've been there, right? So as beginning students, oftentimes when we're advising about how to manage your major, if you come in knowing you want to be a studio art major, managing your major and your general university requirements, often that looks like 1 or 2 studio art classes per semester and the rest general university requirements. So you're taking drawing 1 and you're also taking a history class, one of your lab sciences, a PE class, right? So as you go forward in your program, you complete more of those general requirements and you have more room for studio work. So then by the time you're a junior, your schedule is starting to shift to be more, spending more time on the studio art side of things. So in the department, the students who are newer to the department, I see them much less frequently. And the students who've been there for a couple of years already, then I see them all the time. So our juniors and seniors seem to be in the building constantly because they're at that point in their work that they're really living in the art building in order to get their work done. That's just to say, it never feels, there may be 60 majors, but it never feels like cramped for space or overcrowded in the classes. We have, we work really hard actually to keep the classes at a very reasonable size, in particular because a lot of the, so not in art history where there are no safety concerns, but in a lot of the studios, you know, you're using motorized equipment or you're working with heavy objects or blades or, you know, toxic, well, not toxic, but like ink that you don't want to spill on yourself. And it's really important to us that there's plenty of space for people to be creative, really get, you know, messy and involved in their work and not have to worry about wrecking somebody else's stuff or dropping something because there's not enough room. So we build that into how many bodies are in our spaces at one time. And it does kind of work out that the newer students are part of that mix less at the beginning. And then as they kind of progress, then they're in with us more. But it never feels really crunched for space. Is there a certain level of art skill expected when entering the program? No. I would say that for the most part, people who come in and want to major have taken classes in high school or have been active on their own outside of school. So generally speaking, everybody's come in having been a doodler or having, you know, had a watercolor box since they can remember. And, you know, I would say it's not necessarily about a skill level, but sort of a familiarity with tools there or with media. There's certainly people from all kinds of different, with different interests and different kinds of media and beginners to fairly advanced people coming in. The point of the major is that everybody, regardless, is starting out with these same kind of foundational courses so that we know that when you move into the more advanced things, everybody's had the same kind of training. So anything that you don't know when you come into the department, you will gain that knowledge through those introductory classes and everybody takes them. So you wouldn't have to be nervous about being ready to go, you know, when you walk into that painting class, because you will have had your drawing class beforehand, you will have worked in 2D design and have a sense of color theory. We make sure that everybody's ready for those more advanced things when the time comes. So you should always feel comfortable in our classes. So that's everything in the Q&A. Oh, there might be one in the chat question as well. Okay. Well, so it looks like I've answered all of the questions. Is there, I'll wait a few minutes if anybody has anything they want to add. Or Chuck, if there's something that I should address that I haven't thought of. Oh, I thought of one thing. The department offers a scholarship, the Artistic Achievement Award. That is something, if you're thinking of majoring in studio art, you should definitely consider that when you apply. It's a really excellent opportunity to gain some funding on top of whatever other aid you've received as you come into PLU. So when the time comes to apply, make sure to look into the art scholarship or wait for the announcements from admissions. Certainly talk about those scholarship opportunities that are available to you. So there's one new question here. Are there many art extracurricular activities like clubs or art events? Well, there's a couple that I can talk about. And thank you for the question because that's something I forgot to mention. One of the really exciting things that's developed over the last year is a student art club called The Collective. They've been super active. They are it's not just majors, it's people from all across campus. And they get together to learn and do things. So they've been, one of the most exciting projects that they did was in conjunction with that historical photography class that happened last fall. They got together as a group and made cyanotypes one day. So cyanotypes, if you're familiar with, there's lots of different words for them, solograms or heliograms, the little papers that you buy and then put leaves or rocks on them and set them out in the sun, and they it's photosensitive paper, so you end up with a little design on your paper. That's basically the principle behind it. And so the club did all kinds of really fascinating cyanotypes, including one that was about the size of a queen bed sheet, where they sensitized the material with the chemical solution, and then everybody participated. So it's this gigantic kind of collage photograph, basically, that everyone worked on. So the collective is doing really great things in terms of getting people involved with art. There's also the two big events are the student exhibits, but we also have had in the past, I had a picture on my slideshow of some people handling ceramic bowls, and that's something that a project that we are involved in every year, which is called Empty Bowls, where our ceramicists throw a bunch of really beautiful bowls, and then this year they donated them to a larger sale in Tacoma, but in the past we've actually had a sale on campus here. The sale of these bowls benefits hungry people in the community, and at PLU, when we've done in the past, it's involved also, you buy a bowl and you get a ladle of soup in there, and everybody also eats together then. It's a really wonderful event. So that's one of the things that stands out to me as a art-related community event. But just to finish that thought before I look at the next question, I would say one of the real benefits of a department of our size and of a school the size of PLU in general is that you have the opportunity to make things happen. So regardless of what you go into as a major or what your extracurricular interests are, if there's something that you wish to see on campus, you can make that happen. So for example, our students with the collective were missing something to do with art outside of their coursework, and they created this from the ground up. I've had students request film screenings. I've had field trip ideas that came from students. So just to say, there's always something local for us to go do or see, or someone to bring to campus, and we're open to any idea that you have, and we're able to do that because, you know, it's a smaller community, and we talk all the time. So when you have an idea like that, we can make it happen. There's a question in the Q&A about, oh, have there been any notable game artists, 3D or 2D, that have graduated from PLU? I can't think of any game artists. I've had a couple of grads who went into concept art, but if I'm honest, I don't know if that's, I don't know if that, there was, you know, internships, but I'm not sure if that worked out to be an actual career after they left. The folks that I can think of who have gone into, who come out of the design side of things, have gone on to be, you know, working on like cloud platform design stuff, or UX things more. So nobody doing game work that I can think of initially, although we have had a couple of really fantastic examples of senior projects that were related to game design. So to be honest, can't tell you for sure that any of those people have stuck with that, but it's certainly a part of student interest for sure. Let's see, regarding college transfer credits, or especially IB, which we may receive from high school, if they affect our amount of intro class we take for a regular class, how would this affect our time in the studio freshman year? That's a good question. So there are certain things that can come in that we can give credit for, and sometimes that's instant, like a sort of automatic, and other times it requires a conversation, generally with me as advisor and chair, to kind of figure out what work you've done and where it fits in our curriculum. So, and one of the challenges that we see with that is, so for example, if you did a if you got the, worked on the AP drawing program and did well with that, then we'd want to try and figure out what that might stand in for. So maybe you don't need to take drawing 1, or maybe you don't need to take drawing 1 or drawing 2, depending on how advanced you were in the work that you did. Some transfer credit, like IB work or Running Start work, doesn't like overlap perfectly with the way that our coursework is structured. So oftentimes we find ourselves kind of saying, you did an intro drawing class and you did an advanced drawing class, and those two things together would be equivalent to our drawing 1 class. So it's that kind of thing. Or if you've taken 2 painting classes in a community college curriculum, that might be equivalent to our painting 1 class. So it certainly is possible, and we give credit all the time for work that's been done outside of PLU, but we have to be really careful with the amount of time that was spent in the studio to complete that work and try and make sure that it matches up with our expectations for hours spent working in the studio for one of our 4 credit classes. If that, hopefully that's makes sense in terms of like how things are equivalent. All right. I guess I'll give one last chance for any additional questions. And then as we're coming up on 7 o'clock, I think we're pretty good to wrap up here anyway. All right, I will say one last plug. If when we get off of the seminar or the webinar call, if you think of something that I didn't cover or something that you need additional explanation on, or you just want, my impression of some aspect of PLU, I'm very happy to answer any kind of questions that might come up. You can find me on the webpage for CMDA, which is the Department of Communication, Media, and Design Arts. You can get in touch with me via admissions. They know where to find me. Or you can email me. It's hmatthews@plu.edu, and Matthews has 1 T, so HMATHEWS@plu.edu. Thank you very much for being here. I look forward to hearing from you. If more questions come your way, let me know. I hope everybody has a good night.